Hi guys, it's me, Alex Ever. I am your local artist back for part two with our organic collage art time. I'm really excited to be here. I use they them pronouns, and I'm really excited to show you some things that might feel a little bit different than normal art making that you're used to. Uh, Play upon some old ideas that maybe you felt from when you were a kid that I think will carry over and be awesome for you as you navigate your kind of creative adventure. So for today, we have a bunch of organic materials that you guys went out and collected out in nature. And we're going to take those pieces that you've spent that time with, you've laid out, you've looked at, and we're going to start making art with that. There's actually a lot of different artists of different caliber with different practices that use found art and natural materials to make non-permanent pieces of art that are really wonderful. So it's starting to play off with those ideas of, art making isn't just a pencil on paper, right? For today, we're going to be making a mandala. And mandala is the Sanskrit word for circle, and it's from, different practices from Buddhist and Hindu traditions. And it's really used as kind of a spiritual teaching guide to help kind of coming in and helping us with meditation and focus. And what's really lovely is, this practice has been really popular and really impactful for a lot of people. So you kind of see these similar ideas leak into a lot of different practices. So I'm really excited to maybe introduce some ideas that, play off of that really wonderful specific type of making. So let's get started. Similar to last time, I want to have a moment of mindfulness with you guys, right? So asking you to be a little bit vulnerable, follow me through some things. So what I want you to do, adjust yourself wherever you're seating, get comfortable, push your shoulders back, hands in lap, get comfy. And I want you to actually, instead of close your eyes right away, I want you to take a look at your materials that we're going to be using today. And I'd like you to pick your favorite piece. Whether if it's something kind of weird, gentle or small, it doesn't matter what it is, just one piece. For me, it is this rock. It looks very once you have your piece, I'd like you to put that right center of your palm. And then once again, remember to push shoulders back, get comfy. And I'd like to encourage you to close your eyes as I kind of, lead you through this moment. We're going to be taking some breaths in through our nose on the count of 1, 2, 3, 4. And then breathing out through your mouth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breath is really important for this, so let's give that a try. And exhale. So trying to keep that rhythm. So with your eyes closed, breathing in through your nose, and then exhaling through your mouth. I'd really like you to kind of focus your attention on your material in the palm of your hand. All right? How heavy is your piece in your hand? Note the feel of that texture, that natural material on your skin. Is it smooth? Does it have texture? Any points? Is it soft? Is it hard? Take a moment to acknowledge that and how that feels against your palm. And don't forget to breathe. You take a breath in through your nose, then out through your mouth. And without opening your eyes, I want you to try to remember any patterns or interesting textures on your piece of material? What colors can you identify in your head? What's something about this material that clicks for you, that makes it charming or interesting enough that this was the piece that you put in your hand? So reflecting on that, I'd like us to take our final breath together. So let's breathe in through our nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you're ready, open your eyes. Take a look at your material, and then we're going to set it back down. So a little bit different, but taking time with one object, besides letting that be something that maybe is a little bit more vulnerable with art making or practice, it's actually a really great way to calm your body down and feel connected with, your thoughts and feelings. I mentioned with my last video, take that time, right? So thank you guys for that. That's wonderful. Now that we're kind of, found our center, took a moment. Let's get to working on our mandala. So if we kind of take a look over at my setup, I've already begun. And this is something that I'm going to be building upon with everything that we do. I really do think it's an important step. And this is organizing your materials. So kind of playing off the similar idea of mindfulness and taking that moment to kind of connect our thoughts or feelings. We're going to be doing that with our materials. And similar to last time, it's organizing your materials in a way that feels good for you. This allows you kind of to connect and look at those nuances that you maybe forgot about. If you let your materials dry, you can kind of check in and see how those maybe changed. And just as a reminder, there's different ways you can organize these, right? Try a different way. Try to organize it in colors, shapes, textures, right? I really like blocking things out and putting them together. That's what I like to do. That may not be what kind of clicks for you. So the important thing is that you are taking that time. And just for today, I have a lot of different materials and a little bit of a smaller space, so you're not going to be able to see me lay everything out. But I did kind of want to give you that moment to kind of see how that might start to look across your workspace. So don't feel like you have to end with any of the steps. When I end, know that you can always pause this video and take the time that you need to be with your materials and engage in a process that feels right for you. So we organize the materials, kind of step one, important, connecting with our pieces, looking at those details and taking a moment. Next step is setting up your workspace. So depending on where you're working, it might be something smaller, it could be a floor, it could be a table. We just want that flat surface that we can build off of. And since this is not permanent pieces of art, it's okay that things move and things change, and that's a part of it. So for me, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to scoot my material to the side. So I'm going to go all my rocks. I have some of my rose petals. So let me just take that moment and that time. And maybe you're asking, like, Alex, why did I just set all this up if I'm just going to move it? I want to challenge you there. And before I give my answer, why do you think that I'm asking you to lay this out, just take that time only to move it, right? I think that's an important question that you can ask yourself, right? So I'm just going to move some of my things out of the way, do them off camera, and it's totally okay. This is also kind of a great step to kind of test how you're feeling when we get to the end and rearrange our materials for kind of that non-permanent piece of art. So now that we've done step 2, we have things ready. Now we're actually beginning, right? Step 3. So just like our moment of mindfulness, we're going to find your center. So what I really want you to do is find that material that you held in your hand, that you just had a moment with to look at. For me, that was kind of my little green rock here that I really liked. So putting it in the center, pretty self-explanatory, right? But I do think it's important, right? I'm starting this practice that's based off of mindfulness and meditation with something that I took time with that kind of, had a positive feeling in my gut. So, I invite you to think about that. What's the difference of choosing something you had a moment with that you enjoy compared to just picking something randomly, right? That's where we're going a little deeper. We're doing things maybe a little bit differently than you're used to. So once we have our center, let's move on to the next step, which is building the first layer of our mandala. The idea of the mandala is not just one big circle. We're going to be doing a number of circles that kind of bloom out from our center. So kind of to start our first ring, what I like to recommend to give you the most choice to kind of engage in detail is to start small. So start with smaller materials. For me, I had these very, very small petals. I also had fragments of some rose petals that I found. And it's something as simple as doing a small alternating pattern. So I'm going to show you kind of an example of how I like to navigate this. But similar to how I had you guys organize your materials, right? I really want you to do the things that click for you, right? This is about you taking that time to engage in a process that feels really good for you. So for me, I want to complete that pattern. I'm going to slide in an extra piece of a rose petal. That feels good for me. So I'm going to scoot the other things to the side to make sure I can take a look at my space. I want to remind you that with this first layer, you kind of saw me fiddling and adjusting things. I was doing that because I wanted to make equal space. I wanted to make that pattern click. So things like that, totally okay, right? It's not permanent, so we can adjust things as we go. So let's move on. Now that we've kind of done the first layer, this one's a little bit quicker. I want us to add more layers to our mandala. Hopefully you have a different variety of materials that you've collected. But I want you to start working on building those different patterns and those different circles. And don't feel like you have to rush, okay? This is a huge part. It's not a race. How quickly can I make a ton of circles? It's kind of similar to the idea of organizing those materials in a way that felt good for you. What's clicking, right? What's that thing that's kind of hard to describe that goes, oh, that feels great? If you guys have ever watched YouTube videos of satisfying things, you know that sensation? We're kind of trying to tap into that. So I have some of my hazelnuts that I'm going to arrange. It's something that's not really huge, it's not really big. I kind of want to start smaller and then working out from there. And while we're working on other things, maybe you've seen this. I have these giant evergreen needles. And I think this is a great example to show you guys that with materials that are maybe bigger, you can take off pieces. And you can kind of see here with these needles, they're pretty long, right? It would feel kind of out of place to have them sticking out like this. So this is a moment where, you know, I can take them, and I know it's pretty thin, so it might be kind of hard to see, but it's okay to break your material. You know, for me, I tried it out like this. You know, that's not really clicking for me. So I'm actually going to try to work with the idea of a circle and build around that. And I encourage you guys, you know, while I'm building my mandala, build up yours as well. If you feel like I'm moving a bit too quick, you can always pause the video. Or you can follow along to kind of see how I'm doing it, and then take the time to do it yourself. Because like I said before, we don't need to race. We don't want to rush, okay? So I built another layer. Maybe this looks a little simple, right? But what I could do is I can always come back and add to this, right? So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, you know, there's a lot of space for ways to change things. So, you know, as you're working on your layers, know that you can add details. And if something doesn't click, you can remove it and try something else, right? You know, that doesn't mean that you failed or you're not doing something right. I think that's actually tapping into something that's way more honest and way more important to take note of, which is recognizing, hey, something didn't click, and I'm giving myself permission to adjust that. Awesome. So that feels better for me. I've added some of those yellow crocus petals, and I really like the pop of color it brings as well. So now I want to kind of move on to the next step, step 6, which is creating a more complex pattern. Right? You kind of saw me fiddling around, doing things that feel right, but maybe you guys have seen pieces of art or details where it's crazy, so eccentric. How do people take the time to sit with that or do that? So I'm just going to show you how I approach doing something a little bit more complex. So something I like to do when I get to a good starting point is I like to think about drawing a star. So think about if you follow my finger, right? A star, if you're drawing on a piece of paper or doodling. So whichever way you do that, I know people do it differently, but we have those 5 points. So I'm going to take some pieces that are a little bit bigger, and I'm going to arrange those 5 points. All right. That feels good for me. So once you kind of have your star laid out, right, you got your 5 points, focus on a section between 2 of the points. For me, it's going to be this one right here. And this is going to be kind of our blueprint to build upon our pattern, to do something a little bit more complex. So this is where I get to decide, you know, what feels good, what looks right. I want to pick materials that I'll have enough of to repeat this pattern. But it's the idea of, you know, breaking this down into something that feels good for me, that I could replicate potentially. So I'm going to move this. That one's not my favorite. Actually, some pine cones instead that I'd like to use. And like I said, you know, before, right? If something doesn't click, what are you going to do? You're going to adjust it, right? And for me, I'm even thinking, oh, these pine cones are pretty big, but, you know, that's okay. And you can see that, right, this is kind of my tester strip, but even I started laying out something that I felt confident about. And instead of focusing on the whole piece, right, which you could do, feels a little bit more attainable just to focus on this. So I feel like I want to maybe jump back and just focus on my pattern. And what's really cool about this stage, I'm going a little bit quicker so I can show you the whole process, but you could take a lot of time making something really ornate and beautiful and detailed. Imagine if I took, right, pine needles that I showed you before, and if I broke them into a bunch of small lines and I did kind of a blooming pattern right here, right? Imagine if I took that much time to make something that intricate. That's something that I would really love to encourage and see people play with. So maybe when I have something a little bit more unique or interesting here, I feel confident. I want to repeat that around each section. So I want to invite you guys to, if you haven't already, explore with something a little bit more complex. Feel free to take more time. And when you have something that feels good or clicks, try to repeat it around your mandala. And know that you always have this as a reference to come back to. So I'm going to take a quick minute to kind of lay out some of the things I have here. And I didn't mention this beforehand, but I do want to encourage you guys. This is about you right now, right? You and these materials that you have found. So when you're working on your piece, I want to encourage you to try to find a space that is calming, that is soft, where you can focus. And for some people, that is a little bit harder, and that's totally okay. It comes with practice. Something I recommend is listening to, putting in headphones that can help mute all that extra noise, all that extra sound. And I love listening to like gentle video game music, instrumental music. I'm a huge fan of that. And it really helps me kind of focus in on the reaction and the calm that I'm kind of pursuing and practicing with. So really try to aim for something that, maybe can get you in the zone. So as I'm finishing up here, beforehand, you guys saw that I had a ton of different materials. So as I'm finishing this up, we're actually going to, shift to our final step, which may seem kind of quick, but it's step 7, which is finishing our mandala. And that is taking time, just like I'm doing now, to finish our piece and get those details and build upon those layers. So for me, I'm finishing up my pattern here, right, that I've kind of found. And now that I've done it, I want to add some more layers. I want to add some more fun, add more to that circle. So I'm going to try to keep spacing things evenly, explore different ideas. I missed this spot on my pattern, and that's okay. I'm going to add it back. I really can't accent, how forgiving this kind of process can be. So I invite you guys as well, add more. Let's do more layers. Let's add more things. I have larger rocks, and I'm going to keep adding those. But can you guys imagine, what if I spent 20 more minutes on this and I had a floor? Like, this thing could get huge. It could be awesome. It could be so beautiful. It'd be so much fun. And, I really, really, really get accent enough that, maybe this feels kind of odd. This isn't the same type of making that you're used to maybe in an art class, right? Go for it, right? Let's give it a try. For me right now, I'm going to stop here. But can you imagine keep going and going and going, right? And, you know, feel free to pause the video, like I've always said. Take your time, do what you need to do. But the biggest part of finishing our mandala is kind of hard for some people, which might sound weird, but this is non-permanent pieces of art. And if we look at like original religious mandalas and that creation, they're not permanent either. So what I want you guys to do is we're actually going to wipe this whole thing away, which feels kind of crazy, but you know, something I like to do, I have a phone, I can take a picture of this, right? I can, you know, let it sit for a little bit longer, but I know that when I am done, this is not permanent. I'm gonna wipe it away. So what I like to do, I love taking a picture of what I do and what I make. So I invite you guys to, you know, get some shots, you know, get in and look at the detail. And before you wipe it away, right, take a moment to look at the piece. You know, put on another song in your headphones and just look. You know, readjust if you need to. But the hardest part, right, is letting it go, right? So here we go. When we're done, you know, step 8 has been up there. We want to reorganize our materials. And, you know, I have this pile here that was just something that I was really into. But for me and for you guys, we're kind of coming full circle too, right? Idea of mandala, connecting it. And I'm going to ask you guys to reorganize your materials. You know, take some time adjusting them. You can try to do it the same way you did it before. You can do it a little bit different. But this is giving you time, giving your mind space of saying, hey, this change was okay. I made something awesome. I spent time on it. I spent time, right? You know, taking moments to reflect on where you found pieces again. You know, maybe it sounds a little bit much or dramatic, but, you know, the idea of change is the one constant thing. But, you know, we do get to control our emotions and the time we give ourselves. So that's something that I really think this practice can give. For today, I'm not going to be able to reorganize all my materials, but please, 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 I encourage you to do this for yourself, okay? This is a part of the making and process as well. So now we're going to take a moment for our closing reflection. So coming full circle, right, moment of mindfulness, get in a comfortable position, shoulders back. You know, feel free to close your eyes. I think that really helps. Hands in lap. And I want you to take a moment to think about the mandala you made and you wiped away. Take a moment, think back to your process. I want you to identify one choice you made when crafting your mandala that you feel really proud of. What was a pattern or something that clicked that you say, hey, that looks great? Think about that, right? Keep that moment in the core of your gut, right? And I want you to take a moment to appreciate the work you did, the work that you did to try to do something new, maybe a little bit different, something that might be challenging, all that focus. So when you have that kind of positive feeling that you can reward yourself, let's all take a breath in. Awesome. So my kind of directive for you guys as we take a close for this is invite someone else to do a mandala with you. Or take time to do a mandala again, but make it bigger. How much more detail can you make? reflect on the idea of what would the difference be if you had time doing this with ripped paper compared to natural materials. So a lot of food for thought there, but things I think you deserve to think about. So I want to say thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time for working with our non-permanent art.